Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz made mention yesterday of wanting to create a sterile defense zone or sterile defense area within the demilitarized zone. Not quite sure what that entails. Have there been any discussions between the UN and Israel on that?
I mean, there have been contacts, I think constant contacts between the IDF and UNDOF, but I'm not aware of any contact at the political level, because I also don't really understand what a sterile zone is as opposed to a buffer zone.
Second question for you. Obviously, things have gotten a bit more complicated now for UNDOF. With the new force commanders he just announced today, there's several meetings in the Security Council this week. How is UNDOF adjusting to the new climate, per se, and is there room for troop additions, for resource additions to help them deal with the added burden now with the uncertainty?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're getting a new force commander. I think operationally they're able to bring people in and out. What is different now, given that we have the Israeli Defense Forces in that area of separation, they're occupying about 7 positions, according to our UNDOF colleagues. So, which means that UNDOF's own freedom of movement is severely constrained in the current context. What we want is our peacekeepers to be able to fulfill their mandate and to have the freedom of movement. So, you know, on the operational end, those are the constraints. Obviously, you know, I've no doubt the force commander will be able to deploy as quickly as possible.
Third and final question. A week or so ago, I asked you about an UNRWA statement that mentioned that Israel's campaign against it may amount to hate speech. You referred me to UNRWA, who, to their credit, gave a very detailed and thoughtful response to that statement. I'm coming back to you now on this, on the broader UN. Does opening up that Pandora's box of saying criticism of an agency may amount to hate speech, does that concern you, that may backfire?
No, I think, listen, you know, there's been criticism of the UN's work probably since the day after the charter went into effect, right? So that's you're probably right, the day of. So that's nothing new. I think what we don't want to see is language that dehumanizes UN workers, that makes broad statements where UN workers are painted as terrorists, like we saw on the ads that are up on the electronic billboards in New York. That puts our colleagues at risk. We saw, you know, one example of a number of times where people try to set fire to the UNRWA premises in East Jerusalem. So I think that's the framework in which we're answering it.
But is there not a concern with statements made by UN officials, whether they be independent experts or otherwise, calling for the end of Israel, railing against the Jewish state, that may be turned around and say, well, the UN is the one committing hate speech?
I think we have been very clear in saying we do not support those statements. I mean, from the Secretary General's standpoint. I mean, as you know, Mike, you're well aware of the complexity, the diversity of this wonderful system we call the UN system. I can only speak for the Secretary General, and I think he's been very clear in his messaging. He's not been demonizing any one individual or demonizing any member state, and we haven't been supportive of statements that have been gone in that direction.